My name is Waverly Palmer, and I'm 32 years old. Last week, at my sister's $200,000 wedding at a $15 million estate in Greenwich, Connecticut, I was handed a gray badge that read, Limited Access Guest, while my mother leaned in and whispered, That means no plate for you, Waverly. I had spent 3 years saving $10,000 for that envelope. 3 years of skipped vacations, home-cooked meals, and wearing the same work clothes until the seams frayed. I wanted to give my sister the most generous gift I could afford. I wanted to prove I belonged in this family. Instead, I got a laminated piece of plastic that told me I wasn't welcome at the reception. So I walked to the gift table, retrieved my envelope, and said 5 words that made my mother's face turn white. Before I tell you what happened next, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if this story resonates with you. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. But to understand why I did what I did, I need to take you back 6 months before that wedding. The Palmer family looks perfect on paper. My father, Gerald, is a retired mechanical engineer who spent 35 years at the same company. My mother, Patricia, worked as a bank teller before she decided that being a homemaker suited her better, especially once my sister started winning academic awards. And then there's Miranda, 3 years older than me, Harvard MBA, investment banker at a prestigious firm in Manhattan, the daughter who made my parents' Christmas cards worth sending. And me? I'm a mid-level accountant at a small logistics company in Queens. I live in a studio apartment that costs $1,800 a month and has a view of a brick wall. I went to community college, then transferred to a state university because my parents said they couldn't afford to send 2 daughters to expensive schools. Funny how they found the money for Miranda's down payment on her Upper East Side condo 3 years later. Growing up, I learned to measure love in square footage. Miranda's bedroom was twice the size of mine. Her closet had built-in shelves. Mine had a metal rod and 3 plastic hangers from the dollar store. When she graduated high school, my parents threw her a party with catered food and a live DJ. When I graduated, my mother said, "We'll do something small," and then forgot entirely. But the thing I remember most clearly is the photo on our living room mantel. It's a family portrait from 2015. My parents and Miranda, standing in front of a Christmas tree, smiling like they'd just won the lottery. I'm not in it. My mother said the frame was too small to fit all 4 of us, so they cropped me out. I spent years telling myself it didn't mean anything. I was wrong. The first time I truly understood my place in this family, I was 18 years old. It was June 2009, my high school graduation day. I'd spent 4 years working toward that moment, honor roll every semester, volunteer hours at the local library, a part-time job at a frozen yogurt shop so I could buy my own prom dress. I wasn't valedictorian, but I was proud of what I'd accomplished. The ceremony started at 2 in the afternoon. I walked across that stage at 2:47 p.m., shook the principal's hand, and received my diploma. I smiled for the camera even though I knew no one in my family was behind it. My parents weren't there. They were 300 miles away, taking Miranda on a campus tour at Columbia University. She was a junior in college and thinking about graduate school. My mother said, "Miranda's future is time-sensitive. You'll have other graduations." I never did. The only person in that auditorium who came for me was my Aunt Diane, my mother's younger sister. She drove 2 hours from her flower shop in Hartford to sit in the third row and cheer when my name was called. Afterward, she took me to dinner at a little Italian restaurant and gave me a card with a $100 bill inside. "Your mother did the same thing to me once," she said quietly, cutting into her chicken parmesan. "When I got engaged, she was too busy helping your grandmother reorganize her china cabinet to come see the ring." I didn't know what to say. Aunt Diane reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You're not missing anything, Waverly. They just don't know how to see you yet. But I've spent 15 years waiting for them to see me, and I'm starting to think they never will." 6 months before the wedding, my phone buzzed with a text from our family group chat. A group chat I was added to but rarely spoken. Miranda had attached a photo of her left hand, a 3-carat cushion-cut diamond glittering against a backdrop of what looked like a rooftop restaurant in Manhattan. The message read, "Jonathan proposed. Wedding planning starts now. Jonathan Whitmore III." I'd met him exactly twice, once at a family dinner where he spent the entire meal talking about his golf handicap, and once at Miranda's birthday party where he didn't acknowledge me at all. His family was old money, Greenwich, Connecticut. His father was a retired hedge fund manager, and his mother sat on the boards of 3 different charitable foundations, the kind of people who summered as a verb. My mother's response came within seconds. "My baby! This is the happiest day of my life." My father sent a thumbs up emoji. I typed and deleted 3 different messages before settling on, "Congratulations, Miranda, I'm happy for you." No one responded. 2 weeks later, the invitation arrived. Thick cotton paper, at least 600 grams. The lettering was embossed in gold, with a custom monogram featuring intertwined Ms. and J's. A small insert informed guests that the wedding would be held at the Whitmore family estate, and that accommodations at a nearby hotel had been reserved at a discounted rate of $450 per night. I held that invitation in my hands and made a decision. This time would be different. I would give Miranda the most generous gift I could afford. I would prove to my parents that I was just as valuable as my sister. I started a savings account the next day. I called it Wedding Fund. I didn't know that my mother had other plans. It took me 3 years to save $10,000. That might not sound impressive to some people, but when you make $52,000 a year before taxes and live in New York City, every dollar counts. I stopped going out to lunch. I made coffee at home instead of buying it. I didn't take a single vacation, not even a weekend trip to somewhere cheap. When my winter coat started falling apart, I sewed the lining back in myself instead of buying a new one. I wanted to give my sister something meaningful, something that proved I wasn't the family disappointment they thought I was. 3 weeks before the wedding, I went to my bank and requested a cashier's check for $10,000. The teller, a young woman with kind eyes, asked if I wanted it in an envelope. I said yes. Then I went home to my tiny studio apartment and wrote a letter to my sister. "Dear Miranda, congratulations on your wedding. I know we haven't always been close, but I hope this gift helps you and Jonathan build a beautiful life together. Wishing you all the happiness in the world. Love, Waverly." I put the check and the letter in the envelope, sealed it, and wrote both our names on the front. Then I took a photo of everything, the envelope, the check, the letter, and saved it to a folder on my phone. I don't know why I did that. Maybe some part of me already suspected what was coming. That same night my mother called. Her voice was bright and artificial, the way it always got when she wanted something. "Waverly, have you bought your gift yet? I was thinking you could send the money to me now, and I'll combine it with our gift for the card." I paused. "I'd rather give it myself, Mom, at the wedding." Silence. Then, "Fine, whatever you want." She hung up without saying goodbye. The signs were there. I just didn't want to see them. 2 months before the wedding, Miranda hosted her bridal shower at the plaza. I wasn't invited to help plan it. That honor went to her 4 best friends from business school and 2 cousins from my mother's side. Cousins I'd met maybe 3 times in my entire life. Cousins whose families had money. I was seated at a corner table with people I didn't know. Friends of friends. The kind of guests who get invited because the room needs to look full. During the champagne toast, my mother stood up and talked about Miranda's accomplishments. Harvard, her career, her brilliant future husband. She spoke for 7 minutes. She didn't mention me once, not even a thank you to Waverly for being here. But the moment I'll never forget happened in the bathroom. I'd stepped away to fix my makeup. I'd been crying a little, not that anyone noticed, when I heard voices from one of the stalls. My mother and my Aunt Harriet, whispering. "Thank God you didn't make her a bridesmaid," Aunt Harriet said. "Can you imagine? The Whitmores would have asked what she does for a living, and then what? My mother laughed. It was a light, airy sound. I know. Miranda understood immediately. Jonathan's mother is very particular about appearances. We can't have anything distracting. I stood frozen in front of the mirror. My reflection stared back at me, mascara smudged under one eye. Distracting. That's what I was to them. Not a sister, not a daughter. A distraction that might ruin their chance to climb into the Whitmore family's world. I should have left right then, but I didn't. I told myself it would get better. I told myself the wedding day would be different. 1 week before the wedding, I received an email from the wedding planner. The subject line read, "Rehearsal dinner guest list, final." I scrolled through the 40 names on the list. Miranda's bridesmaids, Jonathan's groomsmen, both sets of parents, aunts, uncles, cousins from the Whitmore side, even a few of Miranda's college friends who'd flown in early. My name wasn't on it. I read the list 3 times, convinced I'd missed it. Then I called my mother. "Mom, I didn't get an invitation to the rehearsal dinner." "Oh," she paused. "Waverly, the rehearsal dinner is only for the wedding party and immediate family. Jonathan's parents are very strict about the numbers." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "I'm not immediate family?" "You know what I mean. It's not personal. The Whitmores are hosting, and they have a lot of important people to accommodate. There's simply no room." I pulled up the email again, scanned the names. Miranda's friend Jessica is on the list. She's not family. She's a bridesmaid, Waverly. Don't make this difficult. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask her why Jessica, a woman Miranda had known for 4 years, was more important than the sister she'd grown up with. But I knew it wouldn't matter. My mother had made her choice a long time ago. "Okay," I said quietly. "I understand." "Good. We'll see you at the ceremony." She hung up. I sat in my apartment for a long time after that, staring at the envelope on my kitchen table. $10,000. 3 years of sacrifice. And I wasn't even invited to the dinner the night before. But I still believed the wedding day would be different. I still believed that when they saw what I'd done for Miranda, they'd finally see me. I was so naive. 3 days before the wedding, Aunt Diane called me. I could hear scissors snipping in the background. She was probably arranging flowers at her shop, the way she always did when she needed to think. "Waverly, honey, I heard about the rehearsal dinner," I sighed. "It's fine, Aunt Diane. It's just logistics." "It's not logistics." Her voice was sharper than usual. "It's your mother being your mother. And I need to ask you something important. Do you really want to go to this wedding?" The question caught me off guard. "Of course I do. Miranda's my sister." "Miranda is your sister," Aunt Diane agreed. "But that doesn't mean she acts like one. And Patricia," she stopped herself. "Your mother and I grew up in the same house, Waverly. I know exactly what she's capable of." "What do you mean?" Aunt Diane was quiet for a moment. Then, "At your mother's wedding, I was seated at the last table, next to the caterer's station. She introduced me to your father's family as my sister, the one who arranges flowers. Not by name, not as family, just the one who arranges flowers." I didn't know what to say. "Your mother doesn't hate you, Waverly. She just doesn't see you as useful to her plans, and right now her plan is to impress the Whitmore family. You don't fit that picture. So what should I do?" "That's not for me to decide." I heard her set down the scissors. "But I want you to know something. I'll be at that wedding, and if anything happens, anything at all, you won't be alone." I felt tears prick my eyes. "Thank you, Aunt Diane." "Family isn't about blood, sweetheart. It's about who shows up. Remember that." I didn't know how much I'd need those words 3 days later. The night before the wedding, my phone rang at 11:47 p.m. It was Sophie Roberts. We'd been best friends since college, and by some strange coincidence, her event planning company had been hired to coordinate Miranda's wedding. She'd tried to stay professional about it, keeping our friendship separate from her work. But that night, her voice was shaking. "Wave, I need to tell you something, and I need you to stay calm." I sat up in bed. What is it? I was reviewing the seating chart tonight. Final check before tomorrow. She paused. Your name was on table 3 2 weeks ago, family of the bride. But when I looked today, it's been crossed out, with a pen, and there's a note next to it. My heart started pounding. What does the note say? It says, guest will receive limited access badge, no meal. I couldn't breathe. Who wrote it? I don't know for sure, but I recognize the handwriting wave. Sophie's voice dropped. It looks like your mother's. The room started spinning. No meal, limited access. They weren't just excluding me from the rehearsal dinner. They were excluding me from the entire reception. Sophie, are you sure? I took a photo of the note. I'm sending it to you now. My phone buzzed. I opened the image and stared at the familiar handwriting. The same neat cursive that had signed my birthday cards for 32 years. Guest will receive limited access badge, no meal. My mother hadn't just forgotten about me. She'd planned this. Deliberately, methodically. She wanted my money but not my presence. I didn't sleep that night, but by morning, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I woke up on the morning of June 14th with a strange sense of clarity. The panic from the night before had burned itself out. In its place was something colder, harder. Not anger exactly, more like certainty. I stood in front of my closet, the same tiny closet I'd had for 4 years, and chose my outfit carefully. A navy blue dress I'd bought on sale 2 years ago. Simple, elegant, not attention-seeking. The kind of dress you wear when you want to look respectable, but not memorable. I did my own makeup, neutral tones, a light application of mascara. Nothing that would run if I cried. Then I sat down at my kitchen table and gathered my evidence. The screenshot of my mother's text asking me to send the money early. The photo of the seating chart note Sophie had sent. The picture of my envelope with the cashier's check inside. And Sophie's contact information, in case anyone tried to call me a liar. I put my phone in my clutch alongside the envelope. Then I called Aunt Diane. I'm still going, I told her. I figured you would. Are you okay? I don't know, but I need to see this through. I need to watch them do it to my face. Aunt Diane was quiet for a moment. I'll be there, Waverly. I'll stay close to the gift table. If you need me, just look in that direction. Thank you. And Waverly, whatever you decide to do, I'll support you, even if it makes your mother hate me forever. I smiled for the first time in 24 hours. I think she already does. Probably, but that's never stopped me before. I hung up, picked up my clutch, and walked out the door. It was time to face my family. The Whitmore estate looked like something from a magazine. Georgian architecture, white columns, manicured hedges trimmed into perfect geometric shapes. The driveway was a sweeping curve of white gravel, lined with BMWs and Mercedes and Range Rovers that probably cost more than my annual salary. I'd taken the train from the city, then a taxi from the station. The driver whistled when we pulled up to the gate. Some party, huh? Something like that. I walked toward the entrance, where 2 staff members in crisp black vests stood behind a registration table. White tablecloth, flower arrangements in crystal vases, a neat stack of badges organized alphabetically. The woman in front of me, someone I didn't recognize, gave her name and received a gleaming gold badge. I watched her pin it to her dress and walk through the entrance without a second glance. Name? The staff member asked me. Waverly Palmer. He scanned his list, then reached under the table. When his hand came back up, he was holding a gray badge. Not gold. Gray. The color of concrete. The color of something you'd rather not notice. I looked down at it. 3 words printed in plain black letters. Limited access guest. Ma'am, this badge allows you access to the ceremony area only. The reception tent requires a gold badge. I stared at him. I'm the bride's sister. His face flickered with something that might have been sympathy. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm just following the list. Before I could respond, I felt a hand on my elbow. I turned. My mother, dressed in a pale pink gown that probably cost more than my rent, diamonds at her throat, a perfect smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Waverly, darling, let's talk privately for a moment." The staff member looked relieved. My mother pulled me toward a cluster of rose bushes, out of earshot from the registration table. "Don't make a scene," she said, still smiling. "Anyone watching would think we were having a pleasant conversation." "What does limited access mean?" I asked. My voice was steady. I was proud of that. "It means—" She glanced over her shoulder, then lowered her voice. "It means you can attend the ceremony, but there's no room for you at the reception." The words hit me like ice water. "No room?" "Jonathan's parents have a lot of important guests, Waverly. Business associates, board members, people who matter to the Whitmores. We couldn't exactly ask them to give up seats for—" She stopped herself, but I heard the end of that sentence anyway. "For someone like you." "You could have told me," I said, "before I spent $300 on a train ticket and a dress." "Would you have come?" "No." "Exactly." She patted my arm like I was a child who didn't understand. "Look, just stay for the ceremony, show your face, leave your gift on the table, and then you can go. Miranda will understand." I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman who had raised me, the woman who had forgotten my graduation, cropped me out of family photos, and whispered about me in bathrooms. And now she stood here, in her designer gown and her borrowed diamonds, asking me to donate $10,000 to a wedding I wasn't allowed to attend. "You want my money," I said slowly, "but not me." "Don't be dramatic, Waverly." Something in my chest clicked into place. Not breaking, setting. "Okay, Mom," I smiled. "I won't make a scene." She exhaled with relief. She had no idea what was coming. I played the part perfectly. I nodded when my mother finished her explanation. I let her guide me toward the ceremony area, a stunning garden with rows of white chairs and an arch dripping with white roses and eucalyptus. I took a seat in the very last row, near the edge, where no one would notice me. The chair was different from the others, cheaper. A basic folding chair, while the first 10 rows had cushioned seats with high backs. I sat down and watched my family prepare for the happiest day of their lives. My father stood near the front, making small talk with Jonathan's father, a silver-haired man in a suit that probably cost $5,000. My mother circulated among the guests, laughing and touching arms and doing that thing she does, where she makes everyone feel like they're the most important person in the room. Everyone except me. Miranda emerged from the main house in a cloud of white tulle and chantilly lace. A Vera Wang gown. I'd heard her mention the designer at least 15 times. $20,000 of fabric and beading that made her look like a princess. She was beautiful. I'll give her that. The ceremony began. Vows were exchanged. Tears were shed, mostly by my mother, who dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. When Miranda and Jonathan kissed, 150 people rose to their feet and applauded. I stayed seated. Afterward, the photographer gathered the families for portraits. Both sets of parents, the wedding party, extended relatives I'd never met. "Anyone else from the family?" the photographer called out. My mother shook her head. "No, we're all here." I watched them pose in front of the rose arch, smiling like the perfect family they'd always wanted to be. And I thought, not for much longer. The ceremony ended with a shower of white petals and a string quartet playing Mendelssohn. Guests began drifting toward the reception tent, an enormous white structure that glowed from within like a lantern. Through the open flaps, I could see crystal chandeliers hanging from the ceiling, tables draped in ivory linen, centerpieces of imported Dutch flowers that probably cost more than my weekly groceries. I stood at the edge of the garden, watching my family disappear into that golden light. No one looked back. For a moment, just a moment, I considered leaving, taking my envelope, walking back down that white gravel driveway, and never speaking to any of them again. It would have been the dignified thing to do, the quiet thing. But I was done being quiet. A hand touched my shoulder. I turned to find Aunt Diane standing beside me, her silver hair pulled back in an elegant twist, wearing a simple burgundy dress that somehow looked more regal than anything my mother had on. "How are you holding up, sweetheart?" I showed her the gray badge still clutched in my hand. "They don't want me at the reception." "I know, Sophie told me." She didn't look surprised, just sad. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to get my envelope back." Aunt Diane nodded slowly. "The gift table is near the east entrance. I walked past it earlier." She squeezed my hand. "I'll be nearby. You won't be alone." "Thank you." Waverly, she held my gaze. "Whatever happens in the next 10 minutes, don't apologize, don't explain, don't give them the satisfaction of seeing you break." I took a deep breath. "I won't." She stepped back and I turned toward the tent. The gift table was waiting. I was halfway to the entrance when a staff member stepped into my path. "Excuse me, ma'am." He was young, maybe 22, with an apologetic expression. "May I see your badge?" I held up the gray card. His face fell. "I'm sorry, ma'am. This badge doesn't grant access to the reception area. Gold badges only." "I understand." I kept my voice calm. "But I'm the bride's sister. I just need to. I'm really sorry." He looked genuinely uncomfortable. "I have strict instructions, no exceptions." Over his shoulder, I could see the reception in full swing. Waiters carrying trays of champagne, guests laughing and mingling. My parents standing near the head table, accepting congratulations like they'd just achieved something magnificent. And then Miranda walked past. She was still in her wedding gown, radiant and flushed from the ceremony. Her eyes met mine through the crowd. For 1 second, one single second, I thought she might stop, might tell the staff member to let me through, might remember that I was her sister before I was an inconvenience. Instead, she looked away and kept walking. She didn't even slow down. The staff member shifted awkwardly. "Ma'am, if you'd like to wait outside, I can—" "It's fine." I stepped back. "I'm not trying to get in." He looked relieved. I turned and walked toward the east side of the tent, where a white table covered in silk fabric held a mountain of beautifully wrapped gifts. No security, no supervision, just a decorative sign that read, "Blessings for M and J" in gold calligraphy. My envelope was in there somewhere. $10,000 that my family expected to receive, but didn't think I deserved to be thanked for in person. It was time to take it back. I want to pause here for a moment. You've seen what they did to me. The gray badge, the whispered explanations, my own sister walking past like I was invisible. So here's my question. What would you do? Would you leave quietly? Confront your parents? Or something else entirely? Drop your answer in the comments, A, B, or C. I really want to know. And if this story has you feeling something right now, hit that share button. Someone in your life needs to hear this. Now, let me tell you what happened next. The gift table was even more elaborate up close. Ivory silk cascading to the grass, white peonies arranged in crystal bowls, boxes wrapped in expensive paper with coordinated ribbons, the kind you see in luxury department stores. Some gifts were clearly expensive. A few had cards from brands I recognized. Tiffany, Williams-Sonoma. One long box that might have been from a jeweler. And there, near the left corner, partially hidden under a larger package, a white envelope with familiar handwriting. From Waverly Palmer. I'd written those words myself, 3 weeks ago at my tiny kitchen table, hoping this gift would finally make my family see me differently. What a joke. I glanced around. The staff members were focused on the tent entrance. A few guests lingered nearby, sipping champagne and chatting, but no one was watching the gift table. Why would they? Who steals from a wedding? I'm not stealing, I reminded myself. I'm taking back what's mine. Aunt Diane appeared at the edge of my vision, standing near a trellis covered in climbing roses. She gave me a small nod. "You're not alone." I took a breath and walked to the table. Casual, unhurried, like I was simply admiring the gifts. My fingers found the envelope immediately. The paper was slightly crinkled at one corner. Someone had picked it up, looked at it, and put it back down. Probably whoever organized the display. They'd seen my name. They knew I'd given generously. But they'd still decided I didn't deserve to be there when Miranda opened it. I slid the envelope into my clutch in one smooth motion. That's when I heard heels clicking on the flagstone behind me. "Waverly?" My mother's voice. Sharp, confused. "What are you doing?" I'd expected this. Maybe even hoped for it. My mother stood 3 feet away, champagne flute in hand, her perfectly made-up face frozen in an expression somewhere between shock and fury. Behind her, a few guests had turned to watch, not many, but enough. "I asked you a question," she said, lowering her voice to a hiss. "What are you doing at the gift table?" Taking back my envelope. "You're—" She stopped, processed. "You can't do that." "I can." I kept my voice calm, the way Aunt Diane had taught me. "The gift hasn't been given yet. The envelope hasn't been opened. Legally and morally, it still belongs to me. This is ridiculous. Put it back right now." I didn't move. From somewhere behind me, I heard a familiar voice. Sophie, speaking into her wireless headset about an issue with the cake display. She walked past us without making eye contact, but her hand brushed against mine as she passed, and into my palm she pressed a folded piece of paper. A copy of the note. The handwritten note she'd photographed the night before. "Guest will receive limited access badge, no meal." In my mother's handwriting. I palmed the paper into my clutch alongside my envelope. Evidence, confirmation, proof that this wasn't an oversight or a mistake. My mother had planned this from the beginning. "Patricia?" A woman's voice interrupted us, older, cultured, with the slight accent of old Connecticut money. "Is everything all right?" I turned. Eleanor Whitmore, mother of the groom, silver hair, pearls at her throat, eyes that missed nothing. My mother's face went pale. "Everything's fine, Eleanor. Just a small family matter." But Eleanor's gaze had already landed on me, on my gray badge, on the clutch I was holding just a little too tightly. "I see," she said. "How interesting." The next 30 seconds felt like an hour. Eleanor Whitmore was still watching me with those sharp, intelligent eyes. My mother was frozen beside her, clearly calculating how to salvage the situation. And in the background, the string quartet played something soft and romantic while 150 oblivious guests celebrated. I looked at the gray badge still hanging from my dress, then at the tent, golden and glowing, full of people who'd been told I wasn't important enough to sit with them. My mother took a step toward me. "Waverly, please, don't do this here. Not today." "Why not today?" "Because it's your sister's wedding." "Is it?" I tilted my head. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks more like your wedding, your chance to impress the Whitmores, your opportunity to prove the Palmer family belongs in their world." Eleanor's eyebrow rose almost imperceptibly. "That's not fair," my mother said. "Fair?" I almost laughed. "You asked me for my gift money 3 weeks ago. You wanted it early so you could combine it with yours, so Miranda would think the generosity came from you. When I said no, you decided to punish me. That's not— You crossed my name off the seating chart. You gave instructions for me to receive a limited badge. You made sure I couldn't even sit down to eat at my own sister's wedding." My mother's face had gone from pale to gray. Eleanor Whitmore hadn't said a word, but her expression had shifted into something cold and evaluative. "I have the note, Mom." I patted my clutch. "Sophie found it. Your handwriting. Your instructions. No meal." For the first time in my life, I watched my mother run out of words. And that's when Miranda appeared at the tent entrance. "What the hell is going on?" The crowd parted for my sister like she was royalty, Miranda swept toward us in a cloud of white tulle, her face flushed with what I initially thought was joy but quickly recognized as rage. Jonathan trailed behind her, looking confused. Several guests had stopped their conversations to watch. Waverly. Miranda's voice was ice. What are you doing at my gift table? I pulled the envelope from my clutch and held it up so everyone nearby could see. This is my gift to you. A cashier's check for $10,000. A murmur rippled through the watching guests. 10,000 was a significant sum, even for this crowd. I saved for 3 years, I continued, keeping my voice steady. I skipped vacations. I bought my coffee at home. I wore the same coat for 4 winters, because I wanted to give you something meaningful, because I thought maybe, this time, you'd treat me like family. Miranda's expression flickered. Surprise, maybe, or discomfort. Waverly, this isn't... But I wasn't invited to the rehearsal dinner. I wasn't allowed to be a bridesmaid. And when I arrived today, I was given this. I held up the gray badge with my free hand. Limited access. No meal. Your own sister wasn't allowed to eat at your wedding. The murmuring grew louder. I could see guests exchanging glances. This wasn't supposed to happen at a wedding like this. That was... Miranda looked at our mother. That was for space reasons. Jonathan's parents had so many guests. Mom wrote the note herself. I met my sister's eyes. She put it in the seating chart, her handwriting, her decision. She wanted my money, but she didn't want me. Eleanor Whitmore stepped forward. Is this true, Patricia? The color drained from my mother's face completely. I've never seen my mother look so small. She stood there in her expensive dress and her borrowed diamonds, surrounded by the very people she'd been trying so desperately to impress, and she had no idea what to say. Eleanor, I can explain. I'd love to hear it. Eleanor's voice was polite but sharp enough to cut glass. Because from what I'm understanding, you denied your own daughter a seat at her sister's wedding while still expecting her financial contribution. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Patricia? My mother's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. More guests had gathered now. The string quartet had stopped playing. Even the waitstaff had paused to watch. Jonathan stood beside Miranda, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else on earth. Miranda grabbed my arm. Waverly, stop this. You're ruining everything. I pulled free. I'm not ruining anything. I'm taking back something that belongs to me. You can't just... I can. I held up the envelope one more time. This check hasn't been deposited. This gift hasn't been given. And after everything you've done, everything you've let Mom do, I'm keeping it. You're being ridiculous. No. I looked at my sister, really looked at her, maybe for the first time. For 32 years, I've been the one who's ridiculous. Believing that if I just tried harder, loved harder, gave more, you'd finally see me as equal. But you never did. And you never will. I slid the envelope back into my clutch. So I'm done trying. I turned to walk away, but my mother's voice stopped me. Waverly Palmer, if you walk out of here, you're no longer part of this family. I turned back. Mom, I said quietly, I never was. The silence that followed was deafening. 150 people stood frozen in a perfect tableau, champagne flutes raised, conversations abandoned, all eyes fixed on the scene unfolding by the gift table. I could see their expressions shifting from curiosity to shock to something that looked almost like respect. My mother broke first. You ungrateful, selfish... Patricia! Eleanor Whitmore's voice cut through like a blade. Perhaps this isn't the moment. My mother whirled toward her. Eleanor, please, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. The older woman's gaze was arctic. You excluded your daughter from her sister's wedding reception. You denied her a seat, a meal, and basic dignity, and you expected her to silently contribute $10,000 anyway. She paused. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a calculation. Jonathan shifted uncomfortably. Mom, maybe we should... We should have been told the full situation before we agreed to host this wedding. Eleanor didn't raise her voice, but she didn't need to. The Whitmores value family, Patricia. All of family. Not just the members who photograph well. My mother looked like she'd been slapped. Miranda stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. This is my wedding day. This is supposed to be the best day of my life. I felt something shift in my chest, not guilt exactly, but something close to it. I know, I said quietly, and I'm sorry it's been disrupted, but I won't apologize for refusing to be invisible anymore. I turned to Aunt Diane, who had been watching from the edge of the crowd. She walked to my side and put her arm around my shoulder. We're leaving now, she announced to no one in particular. Have a lovely reception. And together, we walked toward the exit. Behind us, I heard my mother starting to cry. The chaos erupted the moment we cleared the rose garden. I could hear Miranda's voice rising to a shriek behind us, my mother's sobs, Jonathan trying to calm everyone down while simultaneously directing guests back toward the tent. The string quartet had started playing again, something upbeat and desperate, like they could restore normalcy through sheer musical willpower. Don't look back, Aunt Diane murmured. Keep walking. But I did look back. Just once. My father was standing at the edge of the tent, watching me leave. His face was impossible to read, somewhere between shame and sorrow, and something I couldn't name. For a moment I thought he might come after me, might finally, after 32 years, choose me. He didn't. He turned and walked back to my mother's side. Aunt Diane squeezed my shoulder. I know, sweetheart, I know. We reached the front of the estate, where a taxi was already waiting. I'd called it that morning before I left my apartment. Some part of me had known I wouldn't be staying for the reception. You planned ahead, Aunt Diane said, impressed. I've learned that no one else plans for me. We climbed into the back seat. The driver, the same man who'd dropped me off earlier, glanced at us in the rearview mirror. Short party, huh? Something like that. As the car pulled away, I turned to watch the Whitmore estate shrink in the rear window. The white columns, the manicured hedges, the tent glowing gold against the afternoon sky. Somewhere in there, my family was dealing with the aftermath of what I'd done. And I felt nothing. Not triumph, not satisfaction. Just an enormous, exhausted emptiness. What happens now? I asked. Aunt Diane took my hand. Now, she said, you start your life. We were a quarter-mile from the estate when I heard the shouting. The driver slowed as another car pulled up alongside us, a white SUV with the Whitmore Estate logo on the door. Through the window, I saw Miranda in the back seat, still in her wedding dress, mascara streaking down her face. Waverly, stop! The driver looked at me. Ma'am? Keep driving. But the SUV cut in front of us, forcing a stop. Before I could react, Miranda had thrown open her door and was running toward our taxi in $20,000 worth of ruined tool. You have to come back! She was breathless, desperate. You have to fix this! I rolled down my window. There's nothing to fix, Miranda. Yes, there is, her voice cracked. Eleanor is furious. Jonathan's father is asking questions. Mom won't stop crying. That sounds like a problem for Mom, not for me. Waverly, please. Miranda leaned against the car door, and for a moment, she looked like the little girl who used to sneak into my room during thunderstorms. I'll make it right. You can come back to the reception. I'll tell them there was a mix-up. A mix-up? I stared at her. You think this was a mix-up? It was complicated. Mom wanted my money, and you wanted to marry Jonathan without anyone asking awkward questions about your accountant's sister. I shook my head. That's not a mix-up, Miranda. That's a choice. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I'm your sister. Yes. I felt Aunt Diane's hand tighten on mine. And you chose to let them treat me like I wasn't. Miranda opened her mouth, closed it. She had nothing. Go back to your wedding, I said. Your guests are waiting. I rolled up the window. Drive. My phone started ringing before we reached the main road. Mom? Dad? Miranda? Mom again. Unknown numbers that were probably relatives calling on someone else's behalf. I silenced all of them and stared out the window at the Connecticut countryside, rolling hills, stone walls, houses with 3-car garages and tennis courts. You're allowed to feel things, Aunt Diane said quietly. This isn't nothing. I know, I swallowed. But I can't feel them yet. Not while I'm still in this car. Not while I can still see that house in the distance. My phone rang again. This time it was my father. Something in me, some old childish hope, made me answer. Waverly. His voice was thin, strained. Please come back. Your mother is... She's not handling this well. She's not handling it well? I know how it looks. Do you? I felt the anger rising now, pushing through the numbness. Dad, they gave me a gray badge. They told me I couldn't eat. They wanted my money but not my presents. And you stood there. You let it happen. Silence. I didn't know about the badge. You didn't ask. My voice broke slightly, and I hated it. In 32 years, you've never once asked how I was being treated. You let Mom handle it. You let Miranda be the important one. And you never, ever protected me. Waverly. I'm not coming back, Dad. Not today. Maybe not ever. You can't just cut off your family. Watch me. I hung up. Aunt Diane didn't say anything. She just reached over and gently pried the phone from my shaking hand. You can have this back later, she said. When you're ready. The taxi drove on. Behind us, the Whitmore estate disappeared over the horizon. I didn't look back again. The tears didn't come until we reached the train station. Aunt Diane had insisted on riding back to the city with me. We sat in a quiet corner of the Metro North platform, surrounded by weekend travelers who had no idea that my entire world had just collapsed and rebuilt itself in the span of 2 hours. I actually did it. My voice sounded strange in my own ears. I actually took the envelope and walked out. You did. They're going to hate me. Aunt Diane pulled me close. Some of them will. But sweetheart, they weren't treating you with love to begin with. You can't lose something you never had. The tears came then, not the delicate photogenic tears my mother produced on command, but ugly, heaving sobs that shook my whole body. I cried for the graduation they'd missed, for the family portrait they'd cropped me out of, for the 32 years I'd spent believing that if I just loved them hard enough, they'd love me back. It was never going to be enough, was it? I whispered. No matter what I did. No, honey, it wasn't. Aunt Diane stroked my hair like she used to when I was small. Some people aren't capable of seeing value in others. That's a failing in them, not in you. The train arrived. We boarded in silence. As the Connecticut scenery gave way to the gray edges of New York City, my phone buzzed one more time. I glanced at the screen. A text from Sophie. Eleanor pulled Miranda into a private room after you left. No one knows what happened, but Miranda was crying when she came out. I think things are about to change for your family. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I put my phone away and closed my eyes. That was the moment I left my sister's wedding. But the story doesn't end there. What happened in the weeks that followed, with my parents, with Miranda, with Eleanor Whitmore, I didn't see coming. Before I tell you the rest, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family? Comment below. A, if you've done it, B, if you're considering it, or C, if you need the courage. And if this story hit close to home, consider subscribing. The ending will surprise you. Now, let me tell you what happened next. My phone didn't stop buzzing for 3 days. I turned off notifications, but I could see the counter climbing every time I glanced at the screen. Missed calls, 47, texts, over 100, voicemails that I couldn't bring myself to listen to. The Monday after the wedding, I went to my bank during lunch break, and voided the cashier's check. The teller, a different one than before, asked if something was wrong. "Change of plans," I said. "I'm keeping the money." That evening, Aunt Diane called from her flower shop. "I've been hearing things," she said, scissors snipping in the background. "Eleanor Whitmore had a very long conversation with your mother after you left. Your mother called me this morning to blame me for encouraging you." "What did you say?" "I told her I didn't encourage anything. You made your own choice." A pause. "I also told her that if she'd treated you with basic dignity, none of this would have happened." "How'd she take that?" "She hung up on me. So, about as expected." I almost laughed. "What about Miranda?" Aunt Diane's voice softened. "From what I hear, the honeymoon has been tense. Eleanor said something to Miranda privately. No one knows exactly what, but apparently there have been tears. Jonathan's been trying to smooth things over, but Eleanor is... well, she's Eleanor. She doesn't forget." I processed this in silence. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated, but mostly I just felt tired. "What do I do now?" I asked. "You move forward, sweetheart. You've spent 32 years waiting for them to change. Now you stop waiting." I looked around my tiny studio apartment, the cramped kitchen, the view of the brick wall, the empty envelope holder on my desk. I think I can do that. 2 weeks after the wedding, 3 things happened. First, my promotion came through. I'd been working towards senior accountant for almost 2 years, and the timing felt almost cosmic. My boss, a practical woman named Margaret who had no patience for drama, called me into her office on a Tuesday afternoon. "You've earned this, Waverly. Whatever's going on in your personal life, you've never let it affect your work." She slid a folder across her desk. "12% raise, new title, you start next month." I thanked her and managed not to cry until I reached the bathroom. Second, my mother left a voicemail. I'd been deleting them unheard, but something about this one made me pause. Her voice was different, not the sharp, controlling tone I was used to, but something thinner, almost fragile. "Waverly, I know you're not listening to these, but I need you to know that Eleanor spoke to me about family, about how we treat each other." A long pause. "I don't agree with everything she said, but I've been thinking, maybe we should talk." I saved the voicemail. I didn't call back. Third, my father sent an email. Not to the family group, just to me. Private. "Waverly, I don't know how to say this, so I'll just say it. I'm sorry. I should have protected you. I should have spoken up. I didn't, and that's a failure I'll have to live with. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm just asking you to know that I see it now. I see what we did. If you ever want to talk, I'm here." Dad. I read the email 7 times. I didn't respond. But I saved it to a folder labeled "Maybe Someday." 1 month after the wedding, I wrote the email I'd been composing in my head for years. I sat in my favorite coffee shop, a tiny place near my apartment that made excellent flat whites, and stared at the blinking cursor for a long time before I started typing. "Dear Mom, Dad, and Miranda, I'm not writing this to hurt you. I'm writing because I need you to understand something. I'm not angry anymore. Anger takes energy, and I've spent too many years giving my energy to people who didn't value it. What I feel now is something closer to clarity. For 32 years, I tried to earn a place in this family. I was quiet when I should have spoken up. I gave when I should have held back. I accepted treatment that I would never have tolerated from strangers because I believed that family meant enduring pain. I was wrong. Family means choosing each other. It means showing up even when it's inconvenient. It means treating someone with dignity even when, especially when, no one is watching. You didn't choose me, and I can't make you. But I can choose myself, and that's what I'm doing now. This isn't a door closing. It's a door that finally has a lock. If any of you ever want a real relationship, one built on respect, not obligation, you know how to reach me. Until then, I wish you well. I genuinely do. Waverly. I CC'd Aunt Diane, then I hit send. The responses came within hours. My mother's was defensive. Miranda's was tearful. My father's was 2 words. I understand. I didn't reply to any of them. Instead, I finished my coffee, paid my bill, and walked out into the autumn sunshine. I had a life to build. 6 weeks after the wedding, I moved into a new apartment. 1 bedroom. Actual closet space. A window that looked out onto a small park instead of a brick wall. The rent was higher, but I could afford it now, partly because of my promotion, and partly because I had $10,000 that wasn't going anywhere else. Aunt Diane drove down from Hartford to help me unpack. We spent the whole day arranging furniture, hanging curtains, and arguing about the best placement for the small, succulent collection I'd started. "This one needs more light," she said, holding up a particularly stubborn echeveria. "And this corner gets good afternoon sun. Trust me. I've been growing things for 40 years. I let her win that argument. Around sunset, we took a break and sat on my new balcony with glasses of cheap wine. Below us, children were playing in the park while their parents scrolled through phones on benches. Normal life. Ordinary joy. "I brought you something," Aunt Diane said. She handed me a framed photograph. Me at my high school graduation, clutching my diploma and smiling despite the tears in my eyes. I remembered that moment. It was right after the ceremony, right after I'd realized my parents weren't there. "You kept this?" "I've had it on my desk for 15 years, she smiled. "Figured it's time it hung somewhere it belongs." I stared at the image. Younger me, hopeful me, the me who still believed things would get better if I just kept trying. "Thank you," I whispered, "for everything. For being there when they weren't." Aunt Diane put her arm around my shoulder. "That's what family does, sweetheart. Real family." I hung the photo above my desk that night. For the first time, I looked forward to coming home. I've had a lot of time to think about why my family did what they did. My mother, Patricia, grew up in a house where status was everything. Her parents measured worth in titles and tax brackets. When Miranda married into the Whitmore family, Mom saw her own redemption, a chance to finally belong to the world she'd always envied. I wasn't part of that picture, not because she hated me, but because I didn't fit her vision of who the Palmers could become. Psychologists have a term for this: vicarious achievement. When parents live through their children's success because they feel inadequate about their own. Mom couldn't climb the social ladder herself, so she attached herself to Miranda's journey. And anyone who threatened that narrative, including her own daughter, became expendable. Miranda wasn't malicious. She was complicit. She grew up believing the world owed her more because she achieved more. When Mom suggested downgrading my role at the wedding, Miranda didn't object because objecting would have cost her something. Golden children don't question systems that benefit them. And Dad? Dad was the enabler. The man who kept peace by never taking sides, which, in practice, always meant taking Mom's side. His silence wasn't neutral. It was a choice. But here's what I've learned. Understanding why someone hurt you doesn't mean you have to accept it. Compassion and boundaries can coexist. I don't hate my family. I pity them, a little. They're trapped in a house built on conditional love, and they can't even see the walls. But I'm not trapped anymore. If you're watching this and you've been waiting for permission to stop accepting less than you deserve, from family, from partners, from anyone, consider this your sign. You are allowed to love people and still walk away from them. You are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to choose yourself. And you are never, ever obligated to stay at a table where you're not fed. Thank you for staying with me until the end. If this story helped you feel less alone, drop a comment. A, if you've set boundaries with family. B, if you're working toward it. Or C, if you needed to hear this today. I read every single one. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe and tap the bell. There's a new one waiting for you in the description right now. Until next time, take care of yourself. No one else will do it the way you can.